playoffs from last night. Look, man, I really don't understand why Oklahoma City got away from what made them successful in the wins that they had against Dallas. They were beating up Luka. They were playing full court press. They were dominating defensively. Why in the absolute hell would you get away from the formula that is leading to you winning basketball games? That's just weird to me, bro. I mean, did you really think that Dallas was going to be that well adjusted? And then on top of that, you had a home game. So you forced the series. Dallas was going to be back at home regardless. But the point of what I'm saying is, why would you send them with a 3-2 lead? It's pretty much over for Oklahoma City. Look, they had their chances. Hell of a ball game, really. But to get away from what was making you be in that series to begin with just really blows my mind. It's a coaching thing. You could talk about the way the players played all you want to, but, let's remember how young SGA is. Okay, we need to remember that SGA, Karl Anthony Towns, all these youngins right now that have played the way that they have in the playoffs, we need to remember their age, their lack of experience in these situations. And so what needs to be done to help make up for that is coaching decisions, actual forming a game plan. And they did that in the wins that they had over Dallas. For whatever reason, they just said, no, we're going to get back to what we were doing against other teams. That wasn't working against Dallas. I just don't know what happens to these coaches, man. I don't really get it. It's like something starts working that they didn't think was maybe really going to work or they thought was being clever, and then it starts to work, and they're like, oh, well, that's cool. Glad that worked, and then they get away from it. I don't know. Maybe they saw the Indiana game and went, ugh. It really wasn't working for them against New York. New York adjusted. Maybe we don't do that against Dallas. Well, should have. I don't get it, man. How do you get away from what works? It just doesn't make sense. And look, I'm not saying Luka didn't have a hell of a ball game last night. That's not what we're talking about. I mean, Luka's going to put up numbers basically no matter what. But if you are able to contain him and you are able to figure out ways to frustrate him and you wear down that team, that's what they did, and that's why they were successful. The full court press and playing physical basketball against Luka was working in their favor. Yeah, they should have stuck with it, man. Regardless, Game 6, I think Dallas probably puts this one away, if I'm being really sincere with you. Just the game being at home, no. We're going to see what happens on Saturday night. Plenty of time in between games. They can certainly adjust from now to then, but man, I'll tell you what, unless Oklahoma City gets back to playing that style of basketball, they've got no shot. You've got today, tomorrow, and even a good majority of Saturday to think about why you should go back to doing that. Anybody who says that they should just do what they did during the regular season doesn't understand that what they were doing against Dallas was team specific. And it was working. Just doesn't make sense. Why get away from... Yeah, I know you think this guy is being repetitive. Do you understand how frustrating it is to watch this and go, Do you know what worked for you, bro? Whatever, man. Boston and Cleveland from last night. Boston closes out the series. On to the next one. Yeah. I'm still just really, really not impressed with this win. I'm just not. No Donovan Mitchell. Garland gave it all he could. Morris Jr. did all he could. But no Jared Allen. Mobley did all that he could. And I understand Garland didn't have his best game, which, honestly, the game prior, Garland was playing pretty good. I mean, about as good as he could. And if either Jarrett or Donovan had been in that game, it would have made a significant difference. Not impressed with the way that they won a couple of these games against Cleveland, especially with their key players out. This is a very depleted roster at this point. Donovan Mitchell, honestly, doesn't matter. He hasn't done really much of anything in the postseason anyways to this point in his career. I understand that in Utah, he really never had a team around him for somewhat his time in Cleveland. He hasn't had much of a team around him. But this year, pretty good squad. I mean, this is a good Cleveland basketball team. It really is. But when you've got guys out like that can really make a difference offensively, and then, Jarrett, I mean, what he could do, rebounding. I mean, what was he averaging? A double-double, something like that this year? So I think, for me, the way that Boston had to win some of these games, it's just unacceptable. It's inexcusable. I mean, they should have won by 30, if I'm keeping it a buck. I want to see somebody completely dominate, take over. I don't know, man. I guess we'll see, obviously, what happens with the Pacers and the Knicks. But I'm just not convinced that Boston is ready for either one of those teams because of what they bring defensively to the table. Now, I know, again, look, I know that Tatum has been through a lot of injuries in his career, especially that one, all right? Brutal as hell. I get it. However, there comes a time when we really have to stop giving him a pass. And even then, if they happen to slide by the Knicks or Pacers, whoever they end up playing, I don't. They definitely don't beat Denver. That's for damn sure. That's not going to happen. As young as Oklahoma City is, there's a shot. I think it would be a really good matchup between them and the Mavericks. I think that would be a lot of fun to watch. I think there'd be a lot of up and down basketball, and I think it'd be fun to watch, but I think it would still, at the end of the day, favor Dallas. I don't see them finishing the job again this year. I know Boston fan is going to call me a hater and blah, 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 but when have they ever got it done? They had their shot against the Golden State Warriors. Go back and again watch Game 6. I'm seeing the same pattern with the primary players on this team. History repeats itself. Here we are. They were in the conference finals a season ago against the Miami Heat. And I said then, look, after watching this series, do you think either one of these teams are going to compete with Denver? Miami got up 3-0. Boston should have never let that happen. Miami should have damn sure never let them come all the way back to tie the series at 3. That shouldn't have happened. You had Denver just sitting at home, resting up, watching every play, studying film, all the time in the world. My point is, when you watch this, Do you think that they are really legitimately ready for an NBA championship right now? I get it. 64 wins during the season. All right, fine, Brody. But in the playoffs, no. This has not been what we would expect, especially when Cleveland is down as bad as they are. I'm just saying. Here's some goofy nonsense right here. This is just annoying. And I mean that with all sincerity. Everything about this is nauseating, annoying. Goof.
Burrow is better. Burrow has 4 straight years with injuries. Goff never gets hurt. I'd go Goff. You're getting to a point with Joe Burrow is the injuries are now part of him. Like you have to bake it in. People always bang on Lamar Jackson for being hurt. Well, okay, then Joe Burrow gets hurt. Goff, that's the easiest one. Goff got the Lions to win a playoff game for the first time in 32 years. You know how hard it is to break a losing culture? That is tough. Purdy took over a franchise that just wins a lot, that's stacked, and kept winning. Well, I think Goff he's a number 1 pick for a reason, and Kirk's a 4th rounder for a reason. I think natural talent, Goff's better. Also, Cousins has to kind of familiarize himself, new staff, new system, new players. I don't think it'll be a little bumpy for him, I think. Stafford has healthy year, banged up, healthy, banged up. So I think this is closer than you think. I think Stafford's just a better arm talent. If you took Mahomes out and Josh Allen out, I think Stafford's the 3rd best, what you would call arm talent in the league. This is the hardest one. This is the hardest one.
Yeah. So, first of all, we're not going to sit here and pretend like he didn't say that Joe Burrow is not better than Jared Goff. That's not going to happen. And by the way, he compared winning franchises to losing franchises with Brock Purdy and Jared Goff, which, by the way, notice he wasn't going to go to like the Lamar Jacksons of the world, Patrick Mahomes. Hell, I'd take Aaron Rodgers right now at his age over Jared Goff. I'm keeping it a buck. Well, they got him to go from a losing culture to a winning culture. Coaching had nothing to do with that, I suppose. Team that they had around him had nothing to do with that, I suppose. A specific offense had nothing to do with that, I suppose, because, again, whenever the game is on the line, Jared Goff is unavailable because he can't get it done. I said 1,000,000 times over. I've said it 1,000,000 times since, and I'm probably going to have to say it 1,000,000 times more. When New England played against the Rams in the Super Bowl and Goff was the QB and Gurley was basically hurt, he played a few plays in that game, but he was never going to be in there all the time. They forced Goff to be a quarterback, and he could not do it. They minded their time. They knew offensively for themselves it was going to be difficult, but they also knew that if they just double dog dared LA to throw the football, that it was not going to be successful. And that's exactly what happened. That was a boring Super Bowl. Boring. But I don't think New England gives a damn because they won that game. And they won it the only way that I think they felt they were going to win it. If Gurley's healthy, it's a completely different ballgame. What about New Orleans? Okay, first of all, it's New Orleans defense. Let's get serious. Secondly, let's not forget one of the worst calls of all time. All right, kudos for the comeback, but it is one of the worst calls of all time. So let's just be clear about this. You're comparing him to Brock Purdy. Everybody knows that Brock Purdy's a game manager. If you don't think Brock Purdy's a game manager, you're either an Iowa State fan or you're a 49ers fan. I mean, that's really all there is to that. If you don't think all he does is manage the game, I mean, because literally we're talking about the exact same system in Frisco, Denver, and Detroit right now in the NFL. We're literally talking about fake handoff, turnaround, screenplay, dink and dunk. Seriously, you're just sneaking guys out of the backfield, sucking in the deep. It's literally the same format for those three football teams. That's it. There's really not actually a lot to that offense. But when you've got the right people to run it, the right personnel, it's going to work. But you have to have a lot of talent. Denver doesn't have a lot of talent, but Detroit and Frisco does. Better than Joe Burrow is this. That's the most insanely. And here's the thing: if you're going to talk about anybody saving a franchise, Joe Burrow. The Bengals had the number one pick for a reason, bro. Are you kidding me right now? Come on. No. Boy, it's not going to fly. And look, I understand what he's talking about with the injuries with Burrow, which is something that I've been discussing for a while. But here's the thing. I think at some point, we've got to be honest about Jared Goff. They got to the NFC Championship game this year. Does anybody remember what happened the next season after they went to the Super Bowl? What I am telling you is he's inconsistent, man. He'll have a really great year. He'll have a really down year. And sure, he put up numbers in Detroit a couple of seasons ago when they didn't make the playoffs, and everybody was super geeked up on, how this past season would go. I wasn't. To be fair, for the most part, I was wrong. They got outed in the NFC Championship game. And I don't know if I could really honestly say that makes me right about who the Detroit Lions were. But I will say this. I want to wait and see what happens this year. But to say that he's better than Joe Burrow, that's upsetting because he's not. If being healthy is the standard, I understand that availability is the best ability. Both of them healthy, it is a foregone conclusion that Joe Burrow is a better quarterback. It's insanity to me to think otherwise. And arm talent, Stafford is better than Josh Allen. Okay, look, Josh Allen could throw the ball a mile. That's fine, bro. But he can't win big games. I mean, everybody wants to talk about Kirk Cousins and his inability to get it done on a Monday night. Go look at Josh Allen's record against teams with a winning record. Anybody above 500? It's not happening. I mean, hell, man, and it's always some turnover-laden disaster from Josh Allen that burns him in those games. There's a reason why they struggle in the playoffs. Okay, look, I know Buffalo Bill fan wants to go back to 13 seconds. I get that, okay? That game, Josh Allen literally did all that he could. Who the hell knew that the Chiefs were going to do what they did? Nobody. I thought, wow, man, this game's over. Nobody thought that was going to happen. But Josh Allen, now that he doesn't have Stephon Diggs, you're really about to find out who he really is. Arm talent? Is he just talking about somebody who could throw the football a mile? What you'd call arm talent in the NFL. It just says it so smugly with so much confidence. Damn near every quarterback has an arm in the NFL. Like Dak Prescott doesn't have a strong arm. Lamar Jackson does, whether anybody thinks he does or doesn't. He really does. Patrick Mahomes, obviously. But for the most part, I would say a good majority of quarterbacks can chuck it 60 yards in the NFL. I mean, what are we talking about here? Accuracy? I mean, John Elway had been retired from the NFL for 5 years. Still did the quarterback competition. Was still chucking the football around, man, like it was nothing. Brody just had a cannon. I don't know, man. I get agitated when I see stupid stuff like this. And then what the hell was the outfit, bro? Oh, I'm wearing glasses and a hat, and I look so cool, bro, because I'm Captain Obvious. This is all obvious stuff, man. Obviously, you're wrong, sir. That was all I got out of that. It just, okay. I got to do it again because I need you to know that Dabo really said this.
The only schools with no transfer portal guys. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, man. I know it's Clemson get that military background, but is that maybe taking it to a whole new level with this deal?
Well, it wasn't really necessarily like a intentional thing. There's a couple guys we looked at, but they got to love you too.
But it also tells us you like where you're at. You like
that's what people. That's the other part of it. And honestly, every player is technically a transfer. We just signed a whole class of guys transferring from high school.
I saw this.
You wonder how some people become who they are. You wonder how some people become coaches, physicists, entrepreneurs, engineers, governors. They're not transfers, my man. They are graduating. Did they transfer from middle school to high school? Like, what? Is he trolling? Is he trolling? Look, I know that Dabo has everything in the world against the transfer portal. The man cannot stand it. And I get that. I understand he's old school in the way that he thinks. And that's okay. You could continue to think what you want to, my man. You could continue to believe that you don't have to get a bunch of transfers in order to have a successful program. That's okay. I don't have a problem with that. Because the way the portal is set up right now, there's really only been a couple of really, truly successful stories to happen out of that, right? It was very successful for Michael Penix Jr. He got hurt when he's in Indiana. He goes to Washington. He's able to heal up and look at what he became, right? Jane Daniels. I think if he stays at Arizona State, nobody ever gives him much of a look. He goes to LSU. He takes a mediocre football team and gets them to win a lot of games. Well, so-and-so, these guys are all in the NFL. You'll see. You'll see. Just sit back and wait. You'll see. I guess you could count Bo Nix, right? He couldn't cut the mustard in the SEC, but he goes to Oregon. And I think him being at Oregon helped him more than anything because now look at the system that he's in with Denver. It's exactly what they were doing while he was at Oregon. He sticks around in Auburn or, he tries to go to another SEC school and he continues to get lit up the way that he does. I don't think he gets drafted either. There's been a few success stories, but overall I've said that it takes 2 years because it took, Jane Daniels 2 years to get the Heisman at LSU. Joe Burrow, right, took him 2 years at LSU to accomplish what they did. Take Michael Penix Jr., that was 2 years. Bo Nix, that was 2 years. I think for the most part, because, and receivers could be a little bit different. Their positions could be different. I mean, obviously, right, one of the bigger ones was Isaiah Bond coming out of Alabama. He decides to go to Texas. So there's a part of me that really understands Dabo's way of thinking. There is another side to it. There's been some success stories, but I think, though, that he's taken this obsession to another level, man. I get his dismay, to say the least, with all of it. And I know he's got hell from the media, right? And these ACC media folks, they were being nice to him about it. Tells me you like the team that you have. He's like, well, that's part of it, And I'm not going to say that it's not. I think for him, it was nice for somebody to finally just be like, hey, man, it's not necessarily a bad thing that you don't want to sit around and figure out how you can work the transfer portal to your advantage. And he's right. They have to want to go to Clemson. They have to like Dabo too. Is Clemson falling completely off the map? I'm not ready to say that yet, but they've certainly struggled over the last couple of seasons. But I still think you could do a lot worse than Dabo. I'll tell you that right now. I think, though, that if he eventually doesn't catch up to some of the other things, the NIL deals, which I know he hates, if he doesn't really start truly accepting the way that college football is now, I think he's going to find himself being one of those coaches that gets left by the wayside. And it's hard because he's not exactly old. You know what I mean? Because, look, him and Prime are right around the same age range. And Prime thinks one way and Dabo thinks another way, right? So you can't necessarily call it a generational thing either. Now, me, like, for instance, I'm 40, and I'm good with the transfer portal. I'm good with the NIL deals. Now, I don't think that it doesn't come, obviously, without certain risk, and I've always said that, look, it's the risk-reward for the athlete, but at least they have the opportunity to take it. Why shouldn't they at least be given the opportunity? That's the point that I'm making with the transfer portal. They should at least get the chance. And I think Dabo's just obsessed with it, man. I mean, I don't know what his deal is, but he's taking it too far. You can't. We just got a whole bunch of transfers out of high school. Dabo, stop, man. Just stop, bro. Oh, my gosh. You can't be serious right now. Good grief. Transferred out of high school. That's just called graduating, bro. I don't know what that's just called graduating, my man. All right, they have put out the schedule for first couple of weeks in the NCAA. Speaking of Clemson, they're going to have Georgia for week 0 on August 31. So we're about to find out how those transfers from high school are going to do. Neat, bro. USC's got LSU on September the 1st. I don't know if that's going to be a hell of a game or not. I just, number one, I'm not expecting much out of either one of these programs for this season. I'm really not. USC, really all those teams, that made a decision to go to the Big Ten, they're going to find out how difficult life really is. You think you were having a hard time with Caleb Williams. Now that he's gone, how Lincoln Riley survived last season is beyond me. I don't know if he's got something on the university that the rest of us don't obviously know about, but to me, he must be the all-time nicest guy. I mean, make everybody laugh. He's a lot of fun because how many coaches lose 5 in a row, have a losing record against winning football teams, haven't done anything in the CFP but get blown the hell out. I just, how many keep their job? How many? I mean, after everything that happened in OU, you could almost say that he got a better job at USC. Sunny skies, he's in California. And you're telling me 5 losses in a row. You know what? It is what it is. I'm not looking forward to much of anything from either one of these teams this season. I think people are about to find out just how crucial Jane Daniels really was to that football team at LSU for sure. Maybe USC gets better without Caleb Williams, but LSU certainly did not get better without Jane Daniels. There's no reloading there right now. Miami is going to be at Florida on August 31 for week 0. I don't know, man. think there's just a lot of overhype in the SEC right now. It's way too much. Way too much. The ACC has never really been that strong in football, to be honest with you. They've had some championships, but that's mainly been Clemson. You had the Florida State one. Florida State carried the ACC for years and years and years. I don't know. It's a game that I'll probably watch, but I'm not necessarily saying that I'm looking forward to it, if that makes any sense. Notre Dame, Texas A&M. I don't know, man. Notre Dame goes out, grabs somebody again out of the transfer portal. Apparently, they didn't learn their lesson last season when they thought that was going to save the day. And Sam Hartman couldn't get it done. And I felt like they just did not give the football enough to Audric Estime. Defensively, they were a pretty sound football team a season ago, but year to year in college football, you never really know what you're going to get. I think, look, here's the thing. I think a lot of these could be really good games, with maybe the exception of Georgia Clemson. I think maybe Georgia probably ends up pulling away in that one late. Just like Texas, Notre Dame. None of these teams do I expect much from them for the season. But the good news is we could potentially get some really great football games. What was it, years ago when Texas played Notre Dame and Texas won that game the way that they did. Hell of a game to watch. But I'm sitting there watching this game and I'm going, I don't think either one of these teams are going to do anything. I didn't see where they were going to, by the end of the year, be in the CFP. And I know people get super geeked up, because they watch this one game at the beginning of the season, like, oh, that was a hell of a game. It was a hell of a game because it was two bad teams playing against each other. They kind of made each other look a little bit better than they really are. That's what happens a lot of times in these situations. Now, obviously, it's the start of the season, so it's really too early to tell. But that's just my synopsis. I guess I really don't like a lot of the transfers that either team got, to be honest with you. And I hate preseason top 25 polls. Everybody who knows me knows this. I've been screaming this since like 2009, that preseason top 25 polls really need to go away. They're non-existent. They don't matter, especially in the day and age of the CFP. You've got 12 teams. I think, honestly, you wait until at least the fourth week. At least the fourth week. And even then, I would love to see everybody wait for the 8th week. And then for the CFP, I would love for them to wait till the 12th week, to be honest with you. I think you need a lot of time to decide who the true teams really are. Because, sure, you've got some games like this, between Texas and Notre Dame and Florida and Miami and LSU and USC. And at the beginning of the year, that can look really impressive. By week 9 or 10, how good is that win really? By week 11 or 12, you definitely should know how significant that win is. That's all I'm saying. All right, everybody, I am Drew Duncan. The show's fired up, and we are live. I am brought to you in part by WBFR Block 50 Radio, which is online 24/7, 365 at block50radio.com. I am wherever you're listening to podcasts. Take your device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan. iTunes, iHeart, wherever you're listening, I am there. Just Google Fired Up by Drew Duncan. Seriously. Or Drew Duncan. I'm going to pop up, my man. I'm going to be right there, compadre. And the link to my YouTube is on my Instagram. So, I'm just saying. Guys, your local programming is next. Don't you dare touch that dial.